First game of the October window for the Taegeuk Warriors, getting smacked down by, a five-time world champion, but still not a good result for, where we're at right now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think expectations were we'd probably lose, but I don't think we would lose 5-0 and in the manner that we did. We created so little offense and so little chances that it was depressing to watch, to just make things worse. A lot of it was our own mistakes. I feel like Brazil maybe got 2 legit goals, but the other 3 were kind of off of our turnovers and just our bad decision making. So it was a tough watch, especially at 4 a.m.
I think like one of the Brazil goals, especially, I think the one that Rodrigo scored before the end of the first half was incredible build up. I can't really fault our defenders for getting cooked, but then we saw like other, glaring mistakes, most notably Kim Min-jae on the one, I think Esteval's second goal with just the apple turnover right on top of our own goal. That's just something that can't happen, especially against a top team. Like when you play these top teams, you can lose, you can, have, a bad day, but you can't be giving them goals or else you're going to see the kind of scoreline that we saw today. And I know Paul had posted his match ratings on our X. And to be honest, Paul, I can't remember many players getting anything above a 4 or 5, including the manager. I mean, there's so many places we could start, but for me, I think I'd like to start in net because obviously we ate 5. Now, it's not always the goalkeeper's fault, but I think there has to be a discussion about Cho Yeon-woo and his place in this national team because, I mean, I think he should definitely have stopped Vinny's goal with that one-on-one. It was a pretty weak shot that it let trickle through his legs. And then also one of the Brazil corner kicks, there was a chance where he came out for a cross that was so fast that it just made no sense to come out for. And I think today was the one game where you really saw his age. And obviously Kim Seung-gyu isn't Manuel Neuer or Gigi Buffon. I think he has his own faults, but given his form in the J-League right now, I think Seung-gyu deserves a shout. And yeah, just a bad day for Hyunwoo.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that bothered me the most. I mean, letting the goals in is one thing, but just how he was handling corners and crosses was, I was like cringing each time because his decision making there was just not ideal. And then on top of that, you talk about his, his ability with his feet, and it got tested a lot today with Brazil's press. And I think Myung-bo was kind of banking on his shot stopping, and we didn't get to see that too much. I think he had maybe 1 or 2 saves at most, which were pretty basic. And, not the usual, high flying stuff that we're used to from Cho Yeon-woo. So, yeah, I think we'll probably see Kim Seung-gyu in net against Paraguay. I feel like Myung-bo's going to want to see where he's at. Like, I know he's just coming back from injury and stuff like that, but he looked pretty good last time out. So, I'm interested to see how he does because, it wasn't a good outing for Yeon-woo at all.
I just think, honestly, this is like a microcosm of our issues right now in net, especially, we had a few young goalies who are promising, but I think one of them, Kim Jung-hong, who was in DC United, has kind of fallen off the map completely.
Yeah.
And we've had a few other young ones in the K-League, but we haven't heard from much about them lately. And it shows that in 2025, going into 2026, still relying on these 2 guys in Seung-gyu and Hyunwoo is not a place you want to be. At least I think you want one young keeper pushing them because we do have an Asian Cup as well after the World Cup. But it's not a good sign. And honestly, right now, I think I'd be more comfortable with Seung-gyu in net just because, like Paul said, his ability with the ball at his feet is just a little better. And I think you trust him to make some less mistakes when he has the ball because it does appear that, overall speaking, Myung-bo is not going to deviate from his current system where we're not going to, try to park the bus per se. We're going to still try to build out from the back. And we try to do it against Brazil, which means we're going to do it against everybody else. So to do that, you're going to need a shot stopper who's a lot better with the ball at his feet. But again, the defense was a massive problem today. I know we talked about Kim Min-jae, but I don't want to give him a pass because he did play poorly. But again, he was really holding it down, especially in the first half for a lot of the mistakes that were occurring, especially on the left side of the defense, I think, with Kim Ju-sung and Lee Tae-seok getting cooked. And, I know we've been praising Lee Tae-seok a lot lately, and it was well-deserved. He's been kind of establishing himself on the national team and playing decently in Austria. But, Paul, I think you talked about this. He got cooked on that first Brazil goal, and just overall, his defensive awareness is just really lacking. It's really disturbing because he's not even a left back. He's a left wing back. And as a left wing back, you don't have as many defensive responsibilities as a left back. But he's still, failing consistently, I think, to to lock it down on the left side. And I do worry about that left wing back position. Like going forward, I think Taegeuk is pretty decent, but just defensively, it's hard to trust him, and it just puts more pressure on Min-jae in the middle.
Yeah, and on top of that, you call him a left wing back, but I don't know how much he brings offensively either. He's very predictable
Not the
with what he
fastest
does.
guy. Yeah.
No, I mean, and he likes to go out wide, and he doesn't have much in his arsenal as far as offensively speaking. I think he has a decent left shot. But other than that, I think we praised him a lot for his aggressive defense and things of that nature. But I think today we realized there's definitely levels to this. And a lot of our guys, I think, hit a certain ceiling that I don't think they were expecting. And it's tough to watch that unfold on the pitch, but you realize, wow, there really is levels to this. And no matter how highly we think of our own players, we play a world-class team like Brazil, and you kind of see it. And then you go, okay, this is kind of where this person's ceiling's at. I don't know if this is going to work out in the World Cup. So it's a concern, like you said, especially, what I thought was one of our biggest problems was just not having enough width and not having enough danger going down the flanks and keeping everything so central that Brazil could just pack it in and not really worry about anyone just kind of bombing down the sidelines and creating issues. And we didn't do that at all. And it was a big, big problem. And I know you talked about, building up from the back and playing against good teams and still trying to build up. And I think that's kind of what led to Min-jae's mistake, not to make excuses for him, but I think he was growing impatient with how we were building from the back and how the midfield was not able to kind of shake off the press and create something. So I think he was trying to do something or create something or at least kind of jumpstart something in the offense, and it led to that mistake, which was unfortunate. But I hope he continues to do that because I know Min-jae is a capable passer. He just got sloppy on that one play, and that's what most people highlight. But as you mentioned, I thought he made a few good tackles as well today. He had one that was on a counter. It was a great tackle, and he had a couple others as well. So he's still our leader on the back line, and as much as people are going to criticize him for his mistake today, I thought he played decently.
And I think just in general, instead of, focusing on one player, we have to look at the system. And I think the back three has done some good things for South Korea, especially in that trip to the US. But one of the issues with that is that you don't really have any wingers in this system, and it relies on your wing backs to get up the field. And not just Taegeuk, we talked about how much we love Seo Ryung-woo. Seo Ryung-woo is not a burner. And there were a few moments we talked about this, PJ, where guys like Lee Kang-in and Hwang-in played sharp passes through the lines up the wing, and there was one moment especially I think where Kang-in passed to Young-woo, and Young-woo just didn't have the speed to get there. Had he been somebody like a Hakimi, obviously nobody's Hakimi, but if he had the pace of a Hakimi, he definitely would have gotten to the ball and created a dangerous opportunity. But since he's not a burner, he just couldn't get there, and one of the Brazilian defenders easily just overtook him and took the ball away.
He was ahead at the beginning of the pass, and then he got overtaken. So these long balls to the people. I mean, other than long balls to Sonny, there's no other option.
I mean, this back three, would I persist with it for another match? Yes, I would, just to see how it does against Paraguay. But I think we still need the flexibility to play in a back four again. And I'm just wondering what you think about that.
No, for sure. And I think it's all dependent on the other team that we're playing and, what kind of formation they come out with or where their strengths are and stuff like that. There's stuff that we have to look at. And we can't just say, oh, we're going to play a back three because we want to play a back three. I feel like you do need that flexibility. And we have the personnel to do it too. So I don't see why we can't, decide, depending on the opponent, whether to go back three or back four. I hope we can do that going forward and at least try it. But I do agree. I think we'll probably see the back three one more time against Paraguay just to see how it plays out. Maybe start another center back instead of, Cho Heung-min maybe. I know Myung-bo looked good last time, so maybe throw him in there. And like you were saying, because we've been talking about in the group chat for the longest time, but we feel like Seo Ryung-woo looks more comfortable on the left side and he has better chemistry, at least physical chemistry, I feel like, with Son Heung-min, who's more of a, he could be a touchline guy or more of a traditional winger, as opposed to Lee Kang-in on the right when you have two slower paced guys who like to cut inside and kind of just step on each other's feet. So I'd just like to see us try that, just to give us a little bit of width so we have a little bit more space in the middle, just some kind of threat down the line a little bit, whether that's Chung Sang-min on the right and whoever you want to put on the left, whether you want to put Son Heung-min a little closer that way, and then you have Sodium underlapping on the left side with him, because that's worked really well in the past, and we haven't revisited that well in a while. So who knows? I mean, let's just try something different, because whatever we tried today obviously wasn't working. And I know probably the biggest point that we're going to talk about today is the double pivot that we had today and how unsuccessful it was against Brazil.
Obviously, in this back three system, you have to rely on your two midfielders to really hold it down. And I just think that Paek Seung-ho and Hwang In-bom just did not have the best matches. Granted, Hwang In-bom is coming back from an injury, and I think he was still dangerous per se, but he was still making a lot of mistakes, really sloppy, so I guess we can give him a pass. But I don't want to be mean, but Paek Seung-ho, man, I just think that time and time again, he's been given chances. He was given chances even 3 years ago before the 2022 World Cup in the midfield. Didn't do much of anything, struggled against better teams, struggled again massively against Brazil, just totally invisible. And I know that Birmingham City fans love him, and I think he's a decent player. But again, playing in the third division of British football and also the second division, it isn't the same as playing against a 5-time world champion. And I think Paek Seung-ho really got exposed for being a guy who is good enough to be on this national team, but nothing more than a backup for me. And I just don't want to see him really starting again for us in pivotal matches. And I think that today was a wasted opportunity for us to see Jens Kastrop, that Energizer bunny, starting next to In-bom. Obviously, Kastrop could have potentially made mistakes too, because he's very unproven at the national team level. But I think somebody with a better motor, somebody who would have been a little more, feisty against the Brazilian players, making those tough challenges, which he started doing when he came on later in the match, would have been good.
The physicality that Kastrop brought, I feel like in the first half there was we never committed fouls in the midfield. I feel like we just kind of submitted to Brazil, hey, just do what you want. And it was just so easy. The transition from the back line to the midfield to the offense, I'm like, where are we? We're just just not challenging, not fouling. Something. You can't just watch them just blow by you with a pass or just sit back. And, my biggest issue with Seung-ho is that I think he's a decent player. He's got a good technical ability. He has a good long shot, pretty good on set pieces. But when you're talking about within play, I just feel like he doesn't excel at anything. This is different than my Park Young-hee when I say that he's not good at anything. I feel like Paek Seung-ho is good at everything, but he's not great at one thing. Just very basic passing, no daring forward passing. Just let me get it back, let me give it back, let me give it back. And you keep on doing that, Minja's going to get impatient, and then he's going to turn the ball over. So it's those are the kind of things that I feel like are lacking in the midfield. And Kastrop right away, even if he didn't make a huge difference on how the game turned out, just him fouling a couple Brazil guys, stopping their momentum, making them reset, getting our defense back, getting us set back, it's huge. More than anything, I was the most disappointed with how our midfield played. Not just defensively, but their inability to break press or make any forward passes, line breaking passes to our offensive players. Because let's face it, I don't want to blame the Lee Kang-ins, the Son Heung-mins, or the Lee Jae-sungs today, because I feel like they didn't get the ball. The only way they got the ball is if Lee Kang-in tracked back, or if Sonny tracked back and had to help out. It wasn't the midfield creating something so they would get the ball in more forward positions where they could do something.
The problem with playing a double pivot is that you have to have one of the midfielders be someone who's able to cover a lot of ground, especially when the more offensive midfielder loses the ball or is caught up higher up the pitch. But there were moments in yesterday's game where I saw basically Seung-ho and In-bom both getting caught up the pitch, and when the ball went the other way, you just saw a huge gap in between our attack and defense, and basically leaving our three center backs on an island against those, incredibly skilled Brazilian players. And it's just something you can't have. And I think that Hwang In-bom, let's be honest, despite the fact he wears number 6, is not a defensive midfielder by any means. And he really needs somebody like an N'Golo Kante to be there. And obviously, no country has a Kante, but I think that having a real guy with a work rate who could play in next to In-bom is going to be important, even if he's not a number 6. Kastrop isn't a 6, but I think, like we said, he has the ability to track back when the ball is going the other way that a lot of these other midfielders, especially Paek Seung-ho, lacks. So I think next match, Kastrop should absolutely get a start next to In-bom against Paraguay. And then we talked about the forwards, Paul. Like you said, you can't really blame them because they didn't get much service today. It was pretty sloppy. One thing I am concerned about, though, is I think in the beginning of the match when we looked a little better, Lee Jae-sung did look a bit invisible at that left forward position. Jason has talked about this where, playing Son out wide now at his age isn't ideal because you're going to have to ask him to track back. But my one problem with playing him as the false nine or the striker is that he's obviously not the biggest guy and isn't known for winning aerial balls. So when you're playing a big team like Brazil, there were moments in yesterday's game where I saw, Sonny kind of having to come back a little deeper to get on the ball. But once the ball progressed towards the Brazilian box, there wasn't anybody in the box to kind of finish off the chance. There wasn't a physical presence there to bother Brazil's two center backs. So I think that obviously Sonny can't play as a traditional winger anymore, I think. And Oh Hyung-kyu has been playing well, but sometimes I do worry that this back three system, or what you call it, has forced Sonny to play in the middle, and I don't know if he can always do that depending on the opponent we're playing.
No, I totally agree. And, I think I mentioned this in the ratings, but I feel like a team like Brazil, who's as skilled as they are and move the ball as like comfortably as they do, is not a good matchup for Lee Jae-sung. I think Lee Jae-sung is more suited for more physical, kind of brutal type of play where the other team is kind of rough with their touches as well. It's like
it's like a more graceful cast drop.
Yeah, it's that's kind of how it is, and he didn't have any impact at all. Usually you'll see him kind of win duels or at least get the ball back and stuff like that. But I feel like Brazil was just passing around him like he was a cone. And it's not a knock on Lee Jae-sung at all, to be honest. It's just that's how good Brazil is. So I think in that regard, you have to match skill with skill. You don't try to put out a guy who's just going to run around, not good with the ball and just kind of moving into open spaces, but the ball's not coming to him and stuff like that. It's just not a good matchup, unfortunately, for a guy like Lee Jae-sung. So I don't think that was the right choice there. It's be interesting to see where we go with that spot, that role for the World Cup, and because Lee Jae-sung's getting up there in age too. So, I think the one thing that was on display the most, and it's a testament to Brazil, but their just overall speed, I think, bothered us a lot. Their pace, like anytime in transition when they're countering, like we just didn't have the foot speed to keep up. Cunha was dribbling down the middle, or Estevao, like you said, on the wing, or Vinny, just, minus Kim Min-jae, I think he's the only one who can kind of keep up as far as like tracking back or being able to follow these guys. The rest of our guys just can't do it. And I think that's just a physical handicap that we have as Koreans, unfortunately, against a team like Brazil. And, you just have to tip your cap to that. If that's going to happen and we're going to allow goals based off those counters and that speed, we just have to be able to create our own offense as well. And that just was completely non-existent today, unfortunately.
Some changes we'd like to see before we close out, Paul. I think for me, I'd keep the back three. I think it deserves another shot, but I would switch out the wing backs. I'd like to see Chung Sang-bin get a start at that right wing back spot just for his own pace. And then I'd place Ho Ryung-woo on the left side, and I'd also switch out Kim Ju-sung, who I think really struggled. I think I'd give Hanbom a shot, and I don't know who could play on the left side. Maybe I'd play Cho Yu-min and Lee Han-bom alongside Kim Min-jae. And then midfield, obviously, I want Kastrop partnering next to Im-bom. And then the front three, I think I would still give Lee Jae-sung a chance against Paraguay just because, he's done a lot and you can trust him. But if he doesn't play well, I'd hook him pretty quick, and I'd put somebody like Oh Hyung-kyu on, and then I'd move Sonny to the left 10 position.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And, I think if you give Lee Kang-in a little bit of help on the flank, like we see with PSG and Hakimi and stuff like that, or Dembele, or whoever's playing on that right wing, and if Kang-in is playing the right middle. But, in our situation for Korea, it's a little bit different where we don't have that kind of luxury. Just giving him a little bit of help so he's able to cut inside and create a little bit more and be closer to the box and not so far away like it was today. He had a couple of splash plays, but if you watch all the splash plays that he had today, whether he was like dribbling around or escaping pressure, it was always like near half. It wasn't like he was catching it like near the wing up front, like closer to our final third. He's always getting out of there like in our, back by the half line, and you're just like, what's he gonna do from there? And then all he can do is like spray a long ball to Sonny or So Ryung-woo, who can't catch up to it, and it's just that kind of offense is just not going to result in many goals, unfortunately. So I think giving some help to him on the flank there with Sang-bin or someone like Sang-bin would help at least kind of keep the defense on their heels a little bit because they would have to respect that pace down the flank. And then Egang can cut inside, and then give a through ball to Sonny, like into the box, not like from half field and launching a long ball to him where, aerially, in the air that Sonny's not that strong, and it showed. And these long balls that work at LAFC aren't going to work against Brazil. So it's things like that we have to kind of, the details that we got to pay attention to, what works for us and what works for our offense. Because obviously today was not a good showing of that. So, I watched a little bit of Japan against Paraguay before our match started, and they both look pretty solid, Japan and Paraguay. So I don't think this is going to be easy by any means. I don't think it's going to be like a cakewalk. We're just going to walk away like a 2-0 victory. But it's going to be a tough opponent. I don't think they're as good as Brazil, obviously, but I'm hoping for, at least a good outing, and hopefully a goal or two is what I'll say. I don't know what's going to happen defensively, but hopefully our offense can turn it around and create some offense onto.
Like you said about Kang-in, obviously I'm not a fan, at least, of him playing out wide as a right 10. But given the system, obviously no one player is bigger than the system. So if this is what we're going to run, I think I've accepted that that's where he's going to have to play it for the World Cup. Maybe hopefully for the Asian Cup, he's more in a more central position. But I guess it's not the end of the world if he's playing at that right 10 spot. But yeah, I think what we want, is just a better performance against Paraguay. Don't get beat down at home. Don't give up in the second half and make stupid decisions. And if they do that, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, no, I think we usually bounce back pretty well from L's. And
you gotta talk about the jersey. Well, what does that have to do with the L? Yeah.
I mean, I'm wearing the old kit here, and this is the same kit that we wore against France when we got beat down 5-0, and Hiddink got the nickname 5-0 right before the World Cup started. So it's again kind of eerily the same situation here. Get beat down 5-0 a year before the World Cup. Hopefully we can turn it around. I know Myung-bo isn't no Gus Hiddink, but who knows? I'm just gonna wear this for good luck, good karma, and hopefully things turn around on Tuesday.